The first message came in at 2013 a.m. I was half awake when my phone buzzed, the screen lighting up my nightstand like a tiny emergency. Unknown number. I stared at it, waiting for my brain to decide whether I was dreaming. My husband Nate was beside me, breathing evenly. One arm lay heavy across his chest, his wedding band catching a sliver of moonlight. The message preview showed a photo. I tapped it, a screenshot, a text thread with Nate's name at the top, and beneath it, a line that made my stomach go hollow. I miss you. When can I see you again? Then Nate's reply, tomorrow. Same place. Don't text me after midnight. A second screenshot followed, a photo of Nate's hand on a woman's thigh in a dim restaurant booth. A third screenshot, her name, Maya, and a heart emoji from my husband. The message under the screenshots was short. Just so you know what kind of man you married. I didn't scream. I didn't wake Nate. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I didn't do any of the things movies teach women to do when their lives crack. I just stared at the screen until my breathing slowed. Then I locked my phone. I set it face down, and I watched my husband sleep. There is a moment when you find out the person next to you has been living a second life, where your body wants to panic, but your mind goes oddly quiet. It was like someone had turned the volume down on everything, the clock, the air conditioner, even my own thoughts. All I could hear was one sentence repeating in my skull like a metronome. Don't react. Not because I was brave, because I understood something immediately. Someone wanted a reaction, and I wasn't going to give it to them. By morning, Nate kissed my forehead like nothing in the world had changed. Morning, Claire, he mumbled. He smelled like toothpaste and normal. I stood at the kitchen counter pouring coffee and watched him glance at his phone, thumb flicking across the screen. Big day? I asked. He looked up, smiling. Always, he said. I'll be late tonight. Client dinner. Client. He said it like a blanket, like if he draped that word over his schedule, no one could see the shape underneath. I nodded. Okay, I said. My voice sounded normal. That was the first choice I made, not the big one, the quiet one. Keep my voice normal. Nate left. I waited 10 minutes, then I unlocked my phone. The unknown number hadn't texted again, so I opened my laptop, not because I wanted to obsess, because I wanted to understand. I typed Nate's name into our cell provider account. We shared a plan, a family plan, even though it was just the two of us. I pulled up his call logs, numbers, dates, durations. One number appeared again and again, like a heartbeat. I copied it, pasted it into a search. Nothing, of course. People don't register their secrets, they hide them. So I did the next thing. I created a folder, a plain folder on my desktop. I named it Taxes, because no one opens a folder called Taxes unless they're trying to punish themselves. Inside it, I made a subfolder, Receipts. Then I saved the screenshots. I didn't label them with her name. I labeled them by date, 2026-01-4213, cold. Clean, easy to sort. That afternoon, the unknown number texted again. Another screenshot, another thread. A photo of Nate's suit jacket tossed on a bed, her hand in the corner with a thin gold ring I didn't recognize. The message under it said, he told me you two are basically roommates. I stared at the screen. This time, I felt my mouth lift in something that wasn't a smile. It was recognition. This woman thought she was sending me pain, but what she was really sending me was structure, a timeline, a pattern, a trail. I still didn't respond. I just saved everything. That night, Nate came home smelling like bourbon and expensive air freshener. He kissed me in the doorway. Sorry, he said. Long dinner. I wrapped my arms around him because I wanted to test something. I wanted to see if my body would betray me, if it would stiffen, if it would recoil. But my body stayed calm, not because I wasn't hurt, because my hurt had turned into observation. In bed, he scrolled his phone while I pretended to read. His screen dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. I watched the rhythm, the little micro pauses when he typed, the way his jaw tightened when he deleted something. When he finally put the phone down, he rolled toward me. You're quiet, he said. I blinked. Am I? He brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. Just tired, he asked. He didn't say guilty. He didn't say distant. He didn't say different. He said tired. Because tired is safe. Tired doesn't require answers. I nodded. Just tired, I said. He kissed me once, soft and practiced. Then he fell asleep. I lay there and stared at the ceiling and thought about how easy it was for him, how effortless the lie was, and how much work I'd done to keep our life stable. I wasn't a dramatic person. I was the person who remembered dentist appointments and annual renewals. The person who kept our shared passwords updated. The person who organized our finances into neat little systems because Nate hated paperwork. He loved big moves, business deals, networking events, public success. But the boring parts of life, he left those to me, and that was going to matter. Because the boring parts of life are where ownership lives. For weeks, the messages kept coming, always from the same number, always late at night, always with that same tone. Look what he did, look what he said, look how he chose me. Maya never sent anything graphic, she didn't have to. A screenshot is a scalpel. It cuts clean. There were hotel confirmations, a selfie of her and Nate in a parking garage, his face half cropped out like he'd demanded it. A voice memo where Nate's voice, low and intimate, said, "I can't stay long, she'll notice." I listened to that memo once. Then I saved it. Then I listened again, not like a wife, but like a witness. His phrasing, his timing, the way he said she instead of my name. I started logging everything, not emotionally, practically. A spreadsheet, date, time, type of evidence, location. If the screenshot included a restaurant name or a hotel logo, I wrote it down. If it showed a receipt, I captured the amount. If it showed a map screenshot, I marked the address. I learned quickly that affairs have routines. They pretend they're spontaneous, they pretend they're passion, but they're logistics. They rely on predictable windows. They rely on the person at home believing the story. Client dinner, work trip, networking, and I realized something that made me feel colder than betrayal ever could. Nate wasn't cheating because he was lost. He was cheating because he believed he was untouchable, because he believed I wouldn't leave, because he believed he owned the narrative. Maya thought she was hurting me, but she was teaching me how he moved, how he lied, how he hid. And what he didn't know was that I was watching, quietly, the way you watch someone who thinks you can't see them. 2 months in, Nate brought up the idea of a joint account change. He said it casually, like it was about convenience. "We should move more money into the business reserve," he said one evening as we ate takeout. His company, Darnell Strategic, was his pride. It wasn't a giant corporation, but he talked about it like it was an empire. "Quarterly taxes," he continued. "Cash flow, you know." He smiled like he was asking me to pick up milk. I held my chopsticks still. "You want to move money?" I asked. "Just temporarily," he said. "We'll be smarter about it. And the business is growing. It's for us. For us." I looked at him, this man who had been sending heart emojis to someone else. This man who thought he could reroute our finances like a package. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. His shoulders relaxed. He didn't notice that I didn't say yes. He noticed that I didn't say no. That was enough. The next morning, I called our bank, not to move money, to ask about the limits, the access, the statements, the legal structure. I made notes, then I called a lawyer. I didn't search for divorce lawyer like someone in a panic. I searched for family law attorney business assets because I wasn't looking for a fight. I was looking for leverage. Her name was Denise Rowland. Her office smelled like paper and coffee and quiet authority. When I sat across from her, she didn't ask me if I was okay. She asked me what my husband owned. "What's his role?" she said. "CEO," I replied. "On paper?" "Yes," I said. "And in reality?" I hesitated. "In reality," I admitted, "I run the home. He runs the image." Denise nodded like she'd heard this 1,000 times. "Do you have evidence of misconduct?" she asked. I slid my laptop across the desk. I didn't open it like a wounded wife. I opened it like a person presenting an organized case. Denise scrolled. She listened to the voice memo. She didn't react. Then she looked at me. "How long have you been collecting this?" 2 months, I said, her eyes sharpened. "Why haven't you confronted him?" I met her gaze. "Because I don't want him to stop," I said. Denise leaned back. "You want him to keep cheating," she said. "I want him to keep proving it," I corrected. A long quiet stretched between us. Then Denise said, "Okay." Just that. "Okay." Like she understood the language I was speaking. She pulled a yellow pad toward her. "Hear of what we do," she said. And for the first time since the first message at 2013 a.m., I felt something in my chest loosen. Not hope, control. Denise told me the truth. No one says out loud. Divorce isn't about love. It's about documentation. It's about who can prove what and when and how. It's about assets, property, cash flow. And in my case, because Nate's business was tied to his reputation, it was also about perception. Denise didn't tell me to post anything. She didn't tell me to call his mother. She didn't tell me to confront Maya. She told me to stay quiet. "Silence is not weakness," she said. "Silence is time. Time is strategy." I nodded. It was the first time someone had described what I was already doing. In the months that followed, I became a different version of myself. On the outside, I stayed the same. I smiled at Nate's jokes. I attended his company events. I wore the dress he liked. I asked about his day. I acted like his partner. And that part wasn't even acting. I had been his partner. I just stopped being blind. Behind the scenes, I built a file that grew heavier every week. Maya kept sending proof. Sometimes she sent it with captions meant to sting. "He said you never touch him. He said you're cold. He said he only stayed because of the house." I didn't respond. Not once. I didn't block her. I didn't beg her to stop. I didn't threaten her. You just let her talk. Because the more she talked, the more she revealed. She revealed that she believed Nate's lies, that he'd promised her a future, that she thought she was the chosen one. And she revealed something else. She was documenting her own involvement. Every time she sent a hotel confirmation, she attached a timestamp. Every time she sent a selfie, it showed his watch. Every time she sent a voice memo, it captured his voice. Maya thought she was building a weapon against me. She was building a case file. Nate started to change slowly, not in guilt, in confidence. When a person gets away with something long enough, they start believing the world is made of soft boundaries. He started leaving his phone face up. He started taking calls in the kitchen. He started talking about expansion like it was inevitable. One night, he mentioned a new partner. Quinbrook Holdings, he said. They might invest. My stomach tightened. Investment meant dilution. It meant paperwork. It meant a chance for him to move things around. Denise had warned me. They'll try to shuffle assets when they sense trouble, she'd said. Men like this don't confess, they reposition. So I smiled. That sounds exciting, I said. Nate grinned. It is, he said. We're finally going to be in a different league. I nodded, and I made a note. Because if he was bringing investors into his business while cheating on his wife, that meant he was exposing them to risk. Risk makes people nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. At month 4, the messages from Maya shifted. They became more frantic. He didn't answer me today. He said he's stressed. He said you're watching him. My heart didn't race when I read that. It settled, because it meant Nate was starting to feel something, pressure. But he still didn't know where it was coming from. He thought it was business. He thought it was clients. He thought it was the weight of being important. He didn't realize the pressure was me, quietly tightening a net. One Saturday, I watched him shave in the bathroom mirror. He hummed. He looked relaxed, and I thought about the two versions of him, the man who kissed me goodnight, and the man who said, she'll notice. I didn't hate him the way I thought I would. I felt something colder. Recognition. This is who you are when you think no one is watching. That afternoon, I received a message from Maya that didn't include a screenshot. It was just text. He told me he might leave you. I stared at the words. Then I took a breath. Then I opened my spreadsheet, and I wrote, Month 4 mentions leaving, because the moment an affair partner starts hearing promises of leaving, the situation shifts. It becomes a negotiation. And negotiations create paper trails. The next week, Maya sent a screenshot that made my hands go still. A note, not in my husband's phone. In her notes app, a list, my name, my address, my car, my workplace, a line that said she's not as perfect as she looks. The message under it said, he thinks you're going to try to ruin him. The irony almost made me laugh because I wasn't going to try. I was going to succeed, but not the way she thought. Not with mess, with math, with contracts, with laws. I forwarded that screenshot to Denise immediately. Denise replied 2 minutes later, do not engage. Save. Timestamp. Will include harassment angle if needed. Harassment. That word mattered because it changed the story. It wasn't just a private betrayal, it was intrusion. And intrusion has consequences. At month 5, Nate suggested we host a dinner. A little celebration, he said. New quarter. New prospects. He wanted to invite his brother, Evan, and Evan's wife. He wanted to invite a couple of clients. He wanted to invite the potential investors. He wanted my house to be a stage. I smiled. Sure, I said. I picked the wine. I planned the menu, I ironed the napkins, and I did something else. I updated the home camera system, not because I wanted drama, because I wanted a record. When people come into your home, they relax, they say things they shouldn't, they show you who they are, and I wanted Nate to show everyone. The dinner went beautifully. Nate played charming host. He laughed, he told stories. He made his investors feel like they were part of something exciting. Evan clapped him on the back. Proud of you, Evan said. I watched Nate glow. I watched him drink too much. And then, as the night loosened everyone's tongues, one of the investors asked him a question. So what keeps you stable, Nate? The man said, swirling his glass. This kind of growth can get risky. Nate smiled. My wife, he said. He looked at me like I was a trophy. Claire keeps everything running, he said. She's the real anchor. People laughed. They nodded. They smiled at me. And I smiled back. Because in that moment, Nate told the truth. He had no idea what it meant. But I did. If I was his anchor, then I was also his liability. If I walked away, the story changed. And stories affect money. After the dinner, when the house was quiet and the last glass was in the sink, Nate pulled me close. Good night, he whispered. He kissed my neck. His breath was warm. His body felt familiar. I let him kiss me. Not because I wanted him, because I wanted him to believe nothing had changed. Because the most important part of any plan is letting the other person keep thinking they're in control. That night, Maya texted. A selfie. Nate's shoulder in the frame. Her message said, he said you were perfect tonight. It made him want me more. I stared at the screen, then I saved it, then I went to sleep. At month 6, Denise told me we were ready. We sat in her office again, the same quiet air, the same smell of paper. She slid a stack of documents across her desk. Petition. Motion. Orders. A plan of attack that wasn't loud, it was precise. We file, she said. We secure temporary orders. We freeze accounts. We limit transfers. We establish residency and custody parameters. We didn't have children, but we had assets. We had a home. We had investments. And Nate's business. Denise looked at me. Are you sure? She asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, because by then my silence wasn't pain, it was practice. Denise nodded. Okay, she said, then we do it clean. The week we filed, Nate had no idea. He came home with flowers. Not because he was guilty, because he was performing. Just because, he said. I smiled. How sweet, I said. He hugged me. He told me he loved me, and I let his voice wash over me like static. Because love doesn't erase choices. Love doesn't erase risk. Love doesn't protect you from someone who lies into your face. The morning he was served, he called me from the driveway. I was in the kitchen holding my mug. The phone rang. Nate's name, I answered. Claire, he said, voice sharp. What the hell is this? I looked out the window. He was standing by his car, papers in his hand. His face was pale. His eyes looked wild. I kept my voice calm. It's a petition, I said. A petition, he snapped. You're divorcing me? I took a sip of coffee. Yes, I said. Why? He demanded. That question, like he didn't know. Like betrayal was something that happened to him, not something he did. I paused. Then I said the most honest sentence I had. Because I don't live with strangers, I said. Silence. Then Nate's voice rose. This is about some nonsense, he shouted. Did someone say something to you? Who is in your ear? In your ear. He thought this was manipulation, because he couldn't imagine I'd chosen this myself. I'm inside, I said. We can talk when you're calm. I am calm, he snapped. He wasn't. His breathing was ragged. Then he said it, the line that proved everything. You're trying to ruin me, he hissed. Ruin. That word, he didn't say hurt, he didn't say fix, he said ruin, because what he loved most wasn't me, it was control. He stormed inside. He slammed the front door so hard the frame rattled. Explain, he demanded. I stood at the counter and watched him like he was a man I'd just met. I know about Maya, I said. His face shifted. For a second, his eyes flicked away. Then he recovered. Maya? He repeated like it was a stranger's name. I didn't move. I have 6 months of evidence, I said. Nate's jaw tightened. You're insane, he said. There it was, the instinct. When a man loses control, he calls a woman crazy. I nodded. Denise will contact your attorney, I said. His eyes widened. You already have a lawyer? He snapped. I looked at him. Yes, I said. Nate's face flushed. You planned this, he said, voice low. I didn't answer. Because I didn't want him to feel my power yet. I wanted him to feel his panic. He grabbed his phone. He started calling someone. He paced. He swore. He looked at me like he wanted me to break. But I didn't, because I'd been practicing silence for months. That afternoon, Maya sent her first message after the filing. It wasn't a screenshot, it was text. What did you do? I stared at it. Then I saved it. Then I didn't respond. Of course she thought she pushed me into action. Of course she thought the divorce was a reaction. That was the story she needed. The mistress who finally forced the wife to snap. But this wasn't a snap, it was a schedule. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Nate tried to move money. The transfers failed. He tried to access accounts, he found them frozen. He tried to sell equipment, he found a court order waiting. He tried to call me late at night, I didn't answer. He left voicemails, he cried, he screamed, he begged, he threatened. In one voicemail he said, if you do this, you're dead to me. In another he said, please Claire, please, we can fix this. I saved them because every voice memo was another proof, not of cheating, of volatility, of control. Denise handled communication. We spoke through email, through filings, through documents. Nate's attorney tried to paint me as emotional. Denise was calm. The evidence shows a pattern of deception and misuse of marital funds. She wrote, misuse, because yes, there were hotel charges, restaurants, gifts, trips, all paid with money from accounts we shared. And the screenshots Maya had sent, those proofs, included dates that matched the charges. It was like she'd highlighted the trail for me. The investor meeting Nate had been so proud of. Denise sent them a notice, not a scandal, a legal disclosure. A calm statement that due to pending litigation, certain representations about the company's stability needed to be updated. Nate called me that night, furious. You told them? He shouted. I protected myself, I said. You embarrassed me, he hissed. I didn't raise my voice. You embarrassed yourself, I replied. Silence. Then he said, this is because of her. Her, Maya. He was still trying to make me the reacting wife, the jealous wife, the impulsive wife, anything but the wife with a plan. Denise secured temporary control provisions, not because I wanted to run Nate's company, because I wanted him to stop using it as a weapon. He built the business under our marriage. He'd used our shared stability to appear trustworthy. Now that stability was a legal asset, and I had built enough proof to show that his judgment wasn't reliable. Quietly, cleanly, the court listened. Not to my tears, to my documentation. Nate started to unravel. He showed up at the house one evening without warning. He banged on the door. I need to talk, he said. I didn't open it. I watched him through the peephole. His hair was messy. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a man who couldn't charm his way out of consequence. He pressed his forehead against the door. Claire, he whispered, please. I stayed silent. Because if I spoke, he would pull me back into the old pattern, the pattern where my emotion became his excuse. I waited until he left. Then I texted Denise. He came to the house. I did not engage. Denise replied, "Good, keep it that way." 2 days later, Maya finally sent a message that didn't try to hurt me. It tried to understand. He said you're a monster. He said you're freezing him out. He said you're doing this to punish him. I stared at the screen. Then, for the first time in 6 months, I almost responded. Not to defend myself, to tell her the truth. But I didn't, because Maya wasn't the point. She never had been. She was a conduit, a source, an unknowing tool. She thought she was in a war with me, but I wasn't fighting her. I was dismantling Nate. The process took time. Legal things always do. Paperwork, hearings, disclosures. Nate fought. Of course he did. He tried to hide assets. Denise found them. He tried to claim the house was his. It wasn't. My name was on the deed. Because years ago, Nate had said, "You handle that stuff, you're better at it." He'd said it like it was a compliment. He'd meant it like it was a convenience. Now it was a consequence. He tried to smear me to friends. Our friends grew quiet, not because they believed him, because when men like Nate start panicking, they become unpleasant to stand near. His reputation began to shift, not from a public scandal, from a quiet discomfort, a sense that something was off, and then the final piece landed. Denise called me on a Wednesday. Her voice was steady. "We have enough," she said. "Enough for what?" I asked. "Enough to remove his operational control pending settlement," she said, "and enough to secure your position in the business valuation." Operational control, those words were cold and beautiful, because control was Nate's religion, and the law was about to take it. The day the order came through, I sat at my kitchen table with the papers spread out like a map. Nate's name, my name, signatures, dates, lines that turned a marriage into a legal structure, a structure I was now restructuring. Nate called me. His voice sounded empty. "What did you do?" he asked. I looked at the papers, then I looked at my hands. They were steady. "I protected myself," I said. "You used her," he whispered. "Her." Now he meant Maya. I didn't answer. Because that wasn't the story. Weeks later, the settlement was finalized. It didn't end with screaming. It ended with signatures. Nate kept a portion of his company, but he lost the steering wheel. He lost the ability to move money without oversight. He lost the illusion that he could do anything he wanted and still be admired. He lost the house. Not because I took it in anger, because it was mine too. And I wasn't leaving my own life behind like a punishment. He lost leverage, the kind he'd used to make me feel like I should be grateful. He lost reputation, not in a viral headline, in the quiet way people start avoiding you when they realize you're unsafe. And when it was over, the silence in the house felt different, not like denial, like space. One evening, months after the last message, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Maya. The message was simple. "I thought I was breaking you." I stared at her for a long time. Then she sent another. "He told me you didn't care." Another. "He told me you were weak." I set my phone down. I made tea. I sat at my table. And for the first time, I let myself feel the weight of what had happened. Not the shock, not the adrenaline, the grief. Because even when you win a legal war, you still mourn the life you thought you had. I picked up my phone again. And this time I replied, one sentence. I knew from the first message. There was a long pause. Then Maya responded, "What?" I stared at her question. And I understood, suddenly, that she had been living inside the same illusion as Nate. That she mattered, that this was about romance, that she was the blade. She wasn't. She was the fingerprint. I typed. I didn't stay silent anymore, but my words stayed calm. I never wanted you to stop. I wanted you to keep proving it. I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, appear again. Then she sent, "I didn't know. I believed him." I read that sentence and felt something soften in my chest. Not forgiveness for what she did, clarity about what she was, a human being who had been lied to. A person who thought she was powerful because Nate fed her that story. I replied, "He lies in whatever direction gets him what he wants." Maya didn't respond right away. When she finally did, it was late. "I'm sorry." I stared at those words. I believed she meant them. But I also knew something. Her apology didn't change my life, my choices did, so I typed the last thing I needed to say. "You were never my enemy." Then I blocked the number. Not because I hated her, because I was finished collecting, finished observing, finished letting Nate's mess echo through my phone. That was the part no one saw, the part that mattered most. My silence wasn't shock, it wasn't denial, it wasn't weakness. It was deliberate from the beginning. From the first screenshot at 2013 a.m., I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg, I wasn't going to bargain, I wasn't going to confront. Because confrontation gives a liar a stage. Reconciliation gives him another chance. And I didn't want either. I wanted the only thing that changes men like Nate. Consequences. Legal ones, financial ones, structural ones, the kind you can't talk your way out of. In the quiet aftermath, I walked through my house and noticed things I hadn't noticed in years. The way sunlight hit the kitchen tile, the way my shoulders sat lower when I didn't have to anticipate someone else's lies, the way silence could feel like peace instead of punishment. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was rebuilding. There's a difference. Revenge keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. Rebuilding unties the knot. One morning, I opened the taxes folder. I looked at the receipts subfolder. Dates, screenshots, voice memos. A record of months of my life. I didn't delete it. I moved it to an external drive. I labeled it archive. Not because I wanted to relive it, because I wanted to remember the version of me who stayed calm when everything inside her wanted to shatter. Because that version of me saved me. And if you've ever been in a situation where someone thinks your silence means you don't know, where someone sends you proof expecting you to collapse, where people mistake your quiet for weakness, please hear this. Silence can be a strategy. It can be a boundary. It can be the space where you collect yourself and choose your next move, not to destroy someone, to reclaim yourself. Because the coldest thing I did wasn't filing papers, it wasn't freezing accounts, it wasn't stripping control. The coldest thing I did was refusing to let their story make me react. I wrote my own ending, quiet, clean, mine.